If Raoul ever told the story properly, he would never start with the diary. He would start with the car park, because that was where things still felt normal. It was late October, cold enough that your hands stayed half numb if you'd been outside too long, and the school car park behind the sports hall was nearly empty. A few teachers' cars, one minibus, wrappers blowing along the fence, wet leaves mashed into the ground. Raoul and Damien were there for no good reason. They'd stayed late after football trials, neither of them had much interest in going home yet, and Damien had decided that trying to volley a crushed energy drink into a drain was somehow worth 10 full minutes of his life. He missed badly. The can hit the side of a parked car, bounced under it, and vanished. Raoul laughed. Unreal. Genuinely unreal. It moved, Damien said. It didn't move. It definitely moved. Damien crouched and squinted under the car. There's something else under there. Raoul looked over his shoulder toward the school building. Most of the lights were off now except reception and a few windows upstairs. It was that dead time after clubs where a place felt emptied out too fast, as if everybody had been told to leave in a hurry. Leave it, Raoul said. Damien was already on one knee, reaching under the black Ford parked in Bay 14. If I lose a hand, tell my mum I died athletic. You've never died athletic in your life. Damien pulled out a clear freezer bag with something dark inside. At first Raoul thought it was just someone's lunch bag or some teacher's paperwork shoved there to keep dry. Then Damien stood up and held it out, and Raoul saw it was a small black diary. The cover was cheap and plain, the sort sold in supermarkets near the tills around New Year. No name. No sticker. Just black fake leather with the corners bent slightly white from use. The freezer bag had been tied tight. That's weird, Damien said. Raoul nodded. There was a yellow sticky note folded under the bag's knot. Damien slid it free and read it out. If found, return to Bay 14. Do not open. He looked at Raoul. Raoul looked back. There should have been a sensible person there between them. Someone to say put it back, walk away, stop being thick. But when you're 15, most bad decisions don't feel bad at the start. They feel interesting. Damien said, that's basically asking to be opened. Raoul knew he was right. He hated that he was right. 1 page, Raoul said. Later, he would think about that sentence more than anything else. The first page was nothing. A timetable. A few dates. A maths homework note. It looked so boring that Raoul nearly felt stupid. Then Damien turned 2 pages further in. The writing changed there. Still neat, still careful, but not normal diary stuff. No plans. No appointments. Just names, dates, and short entries. Leah Mercer copies formulas onto the inside of her cuff before maths tests. Calamy says his wrist still hurts but it doesn't. Wants extra time. Nina P. sleeps with a lamp on. Told Sarah at her birthday sleepover. Damien laughed softly. What is this? Raoul didn't answer. There was something off about it straight away. Not because the first secrets were that serious. They weren't. It was because of how they were written down. Cleanly. Calmly. Like they mattered. Damien turned another page. Ava C. started the rumor about Mrs. Denton drinking in the supply cupboard. Chloe helped spread it. Neither expected it to go that far. Another page. Kieran Bell says his older brother moved to Leeds. Not true. Arrested in August. Another. Mr. Hargreaves stays too long in Music 3 with prefects after lunch. Probably nothing. Watch anyway. That one made both boys go quiet. That's bad, Damien said. Raoul still said nothing. He was staring at the page after that. Halfway down, under a date from 6 weeks earlier, it said. Raoul Mendoza still listens to the voicemail from his dad when he thinks nobody's around. Only Damien knows that. For a second Raoul felt like he'd gone underwater. The air changed. The car park changed. Damien was saying something, but Raoul barely heard it at first. I didn't tell anyone, Damien said. Raoul looked at him. Damien's face had gone pale under the cold. "I swear." Raoul believed him straight away, which almost made it worse. If Damien hadn't said anything, then someone had got hold of the one thing Raoul had told him because it still hurt too much to say to anyone else. His dad had died 3 years earlier. Heart attack. No warning. One normal day, then not normal ever again. The voicemail was short and stupid. His dad asking him to grab bread on the way home, sounding distracted, alive, ordinary. Raoul listened to it more than he liked admitting. He'd only ever told Damien once, on a late-night call when neither of them could sleep and the anniversary was coming up. Now it was in a diary under a teacher's car. Raoul shut the book. "We're taking it," he said. They agreed 3 rules that same night on Damien's trampoline while the cold came through their hoodies and the streetlights hummed over the gardens. First, no telling anyone. Second, the diary stayed hidden. Third, they found whoever wrote it before anyone else got hurt. At the time, all 3 rules sounded solid. By Christmas, they had broken one, bent one, and barely understood the third. The diary lived in Raoul's room in an old Adidas shoebox under tangled phone chargers and a broken PS4 controller. He checked it more than he meant to. At first the two of them only read a few pages at a time, mostly because each page made them feel worse. The deeper they got, the uglier it became. Not every entry was serious. A lot of it was the kind of thing kids would kill to keep private at 15 and then laugh about at 25 if they were lucky enough to get there intact. Crushes. Faked illnesses. A girl in year 11 pretending not to need glasses because she thought they made her look weak. A boy from Top Set English who still wet the bed after his parents split up. Stuff that wasn't evil, just exposed. But mixed in with that was worse material. A prefect stealing revision papers and selling photos of them. A year 10 boy nicking money from his gran. A girl saying she lied about how far a boy had gone with her because she wanted sympathy after he dumped her. A list of which teachers could be manipulated by tears and which couldn't. Names of people vaping behind the art block. Names of people sending nudes. Names of people self-harming. Parents cheating. Siblings arrested. Pills taken from bathroom cabinets. One entry about a girl's older boyfriend that made Raoul feel sick enough to close the diary for a week. It wasn't gossip. Not really. It was more like someone had been making a map of everything weak and ugly in the school and storing it up. And the worst part was how often the writer got things right. They started with obvious suspects because 15-year-old boys think suspicion should make neat shapes. Lewis Grant from year 11 seemed likely first. He always knew everything, loved rumors, and practically lived on drama. But they crossed him off inside 2 weeks. He talked too much. He showed off what he knew. The diary writer didn't. And Lewis wrote like an injured spider, massive loops, horrible spelling, random capital letters. The diary was too controlled for him. Then Priya from Debate Club. Too clever, noticed everything, remembered details from months ago. Damien had been convinced for almost a week. Then Raoul remembered she went to violin every Wednesday straight from school, picked up by her mum, and half the entries had clearly been written Wednesday afternoons because they mentioned things from lunch that same day. Crossed off. Then Caden from the student newsletter. Crossed off after Damien nicked a look at his exercise book and found completely different handwriting. They even suspected a teacher for a bit, until Raoul pointed out that no adult would write, tries to act unbothered but was fully raging, in a way that sounded natural. November became December. School got darker earlier. Teachers got stricter. Mock exam talk started. The investigation, if it deserved that word, became part of life. They made lists in Raoul's maths book. Who knew too much? Who moved between groups easily? Who heard secrets without being noticed? Who had neat handwriting? Who stayed late often enough to use the car park? They crossed people off and circled them again. They made stupid theories, argued over them, abandoned them, came back to them. Some days they felt close. Most days they had nothing. What made it hard was that the diary writer clearly wasn't just overhearing random stuff. Some of the entries had timing that suggested planning. Some sounded like things told in confidence. Some felt watched. That changed how Raoul looked at school. He started noticing who sat where, who lingered near doors after conversations ended, who asked questions and then acted like they weren't asking anything important. The school began to feel smaller and less safe. Not dangerous exactly. Just thin. Like all the walls were made of paper. Damien changed too, though in a quieter way. He joked less once they were alone. He still acted the same around other people, still messed about in class and said stupid things at the wrong time, but when it was just the two of them he seemed more careful, as if he understood before Raoul did that they had picked something up they couldn't easily put down again. Then February happened. And Raoul started suspecting him. He hated himself for it straight away. That didn't stop it happening. The first reason was obvious, the entry about the voicemail. The second was harder to ignore. More and more of the diary entries covered things Damien realistically could have known: football changing room talk, lunchtime arguments, stuff from gaming parties, bits of conversation from bus journeys. Damien moved between groups easily. People told him things because he was funny and because he rarely seemed serious enough to be dangerous. Then Raoul found an entry he had somehow missed before. D. Walsh told Mason you can trigger the science block alarm from the side panel if you use a paperclip. Could be useful later. He read it 3 times. When he asked Damien about it, Damien looked genuinely confused at first, then angry. I did say that, he admitted. As a joke. Like months ago. How does that make it me? It doesn't. But it might have. For nearly a week, Raoul said less than normal and watched more. He watched Damien in lessons, at break, on the walk home. He hated doing it. He hated that Damien noticed. Eventually Damien snapped. Just ask me properly, he said one lunch break behind the English block. Raoul looked at him. You think it's me? Fine. Say it. Raoul didn't want to. Which probably counted as saying it. Damien stared at him, then laughed once, short, sharp, not amused. That's mad, he said. Actually mad. What cleared him was not one dramatic piece of proof. It was something better. A cluster of boring real details. One diary entry about a year 11 couple behind the drama store had been written during a lunch break when Damien was in isolation for mouthing off in science. Raoul checked that through Mason, who checked through someone else, and it held. Another entry had been made on the same Saturday Damien was in Birmingham at his nan's. Raoul knew that because Damien's mum had posted 6 photos of the trip, including one of Damien asleep against a coach window with his mouth open. A third entry was dated during an away football match with enough players and parents around that faking being elsewhere would have been impossible. None of it was perfect proof on its own. Together it was enough. When Raoul finally said, I don't think it's you, Damien's face didn't soften. No, he said. That's decent of you. Raoul apologized. Damien looked like he wanted to stay angry. Maybe he should have. But after a while he just said, if it was me, I'd have done way better than this. Raoul almost laughed. That was how they got past it. Not neatly. Not with one heartfelt speech. Just a bit of shame, a bit of stubbornness, and both of them not wanting to lose the friendship over something rotten neither had made. After that, Damien became the one person Raoul trusted fully again. Maybe more than before. The Raoul break came in March from something so small Raoul nearly missed it. He was in the library, pretending to revise biology while actually flipping through copied pages they'd written out by hand so they didn't have to carry the diary around. He noticed that every time the writer mentioned Ellie Price, they called her Eleanor. Not once. Every single time. Nobody called her Eleanor. Not friends. Not teachers. Not even on register most days. It stuck in his head because it felt personal, like the writer had decided what people were really called and refused to bend for anyone else's version. Later that same day, Raoul heard someone by the lockers say, Eleanor, wait up. He turned. Talia Reid. She said it lightly, smiling, almost like a joke. Ellie rolled her eyes and kept walking. Raoul stood still. Talia was not someone he'd ever have suspected at the start. She was too obvious in the wrong way. Pretty, popular, known by everyone, the sort of girl teachers described as lovely without hesitation. She floated between groups easily: sporty girls, quiet girls, boys from football, people from drama, even younger years who stared at her like she knew how to live. She remembered things about people. She checked in when they were upset. She could walk through a corridor full of tension and come out with 3 new pieces of information and someone grateful she'd asked. When Raoul told Damien, Damien reacted exactly as expected. Talia. Nah. Why, nah? Because she's just not weird. Raoul shut his locker. You don't think popular people are weird? You know what I mean. He did. But he also knew that if someone wanted access to everybody's lives, being liked was the best disguise there was. So they watched her. Carefully. Not every second. They had school, mocks, parents, football, actual lives. But over the next few weeks, Talia kept appearing in ways that felt wrong once they were paying attention. She was always near enough to hear, never so near that it looked deliberate. She asked questions with perfect timing. Not nosy questions. Caring ones. How are things at home now? You and Chloe fixed it. Still going physio for your knee? Your mum still on nights? The kind of questions people answered because refusing them made you look rude. Raoul began to see how it worked. Talia didn't force secrets out of people. She made them hand things over in pieces and then acted trustworthy enough that nobody remembered when they'd done it. The diary started making more sense after that. Especially when they dug into older stories about her. Not rumors, actual memories from people who'd known her longer. A Year 11 girl told Damien that Talia used to get laughed at in Year 7 for trying too hard to fit in, always bringing little gifts for birthdays and getting mocked for it the second she walked away. A boy from her old primary said she'd been dropped by one friend group after another because she cared too much and made everything intense. Another girl mentioned that Talia used to cry in the toilets almost every day in Year 8 after screenshots from a private chat about her got spread around. By itself, none of that meant she wrote the diary. Together, it suggested motive. Not revenge in the simple sense. Not just wanting to hurt people. Something darker than that. Talia seemed like someone who had once been crushed by finding out how fake people could be and had decided never to be the one left exposed again. If she knew everyone's worst side, then nobody could sit above her. Nobody could reject her cleanly. Nobody could smile at her while privately thinking they were better. The diary was not just a weapon. It was insurance. Control. Proof that everyone else was dirty too. Raoul understood that more than he wanted to. By April, they were fairly sure it was her. By May, they were certain. What they still didn't have was something they could use. Accusing Talia without proof would have gone badly. She had too much social weight. Too many people liked her. Too many adults trusted her face. And there was another problem: the longer they spent on this, the more the diary itself started affecting them. Raoul became more suspicious in general. Not in a dramatic way. Just enough that he noticed it. If someone said, "Don't tell anyone," he immediately thought about who already knew. If someone seemed kind, he wondered what they gained from it. He checked his phone twice before sleeping because the thought of private things sitting out there unseen suddenly made his skin crawl. Damien handled it differently. He got angrier. Not loud angry. Focused angry. Partly because of Raoul's voicemail entry. Partly because there were pages in that diary about people they knew who were not built to survive public humiliation. One Year 10 girl, Freya, had an entry about panic attacks in toilets before presentations. Another boy had notes about stealing food because things at home were bad. Damien took that stuff personally in a way he didn't explain much. Once, when Raoul asked why, Damien just said, "Because some things ruin school for people. Longer than school lasts." It was one of the smartest things Raoul had ever heard him say. So they set a trap. Nothing huge. Nothing dramatic. Damien spread a fake secret in pieces. To 3 different people, with slightly different versions. The core story was that Raoul's mum might be taking a job in Manchester and he could be moving before Year 11. That part was false, but believable enough. The key was that Raoul told one extra detail, a made-up reason about money trouble at home, to only one person. Talia. He did it after English, acting distracted and tired. He didn't even need to sell it much. Talia did most of the work herself, softening her voice, asking if he was okay, making it feel safe to say more than he meant to. My mum doesn't want it around school yet, he told her. Of course, she said. I wouldn't tell anyone. He almost felt bad then, which annoyed him. 3 nights later, when he and Damien checked the diary, there it was. Raoul M. may leave before year 11. Mum's job/money issues. Doesn't want people talking. Damien knows less than he pretends. Damien read it and sat back hard against Raoul's bed. That's it, he said. It wasn't proof in a teacher meeting, legal, adult sense. But it was enough to know. Now they needed her to say it herself. The confrontation happened in June, after school, in the old science courtyard no one used anymore because one of the doors jammed and the benches were splintering. Damien texted her from his own phone saying Raoul needed to talk and it was serious. She came quickly. That said something by itself. When she walked in, she had the same expression she always had when somebody wanted help, open, worried, slightly softer around the eyes. It was such a good expression Raoul wondered how much of her own face she had trained. What's happened? She asked. Raoul had the diary in his bag. Damien leaned against the wall. With his arms folded, trying not to look like he wanted this too much. Raoul started carefully. You know people have been talking this year. Talia gave a small shrug. People always talk. Not like this, Damien said. What do you mean? Raoul watched her. Secrets. Stuff that shouldn't be out there. Talia hesitated just enough to notice if you were waiting for it. Okay. You call Ellie Price Eleanor, Raoul said. Talia frowned. Sometimes. So does the person who wrote all of it down. She gave a quick laugh. Too quick. You dragged me here for that. Damien stepped in. And for Bay 14. There it was again, that tiny pause. Not confusion. Recognition being smothered. Talia crossed her arms. What about it? Raoul kept his voice level. You know exactly what about it. No, I don't. He let the silence stretch. She filled it by looking annoyed, which was maybe her first mistake. Damien said, what about the freezer bag? This time she didn't answer straight away. Raoul could almost see her thinking, how much do they know? How much are they bluffing? What do I admit? What do I deny? You're being weird, she said finally. So are you, Raoul said. Then he took one of their copied pages from his pocket and held it up, not close enough for her to snatch. Just enough for her to see the handwriting. Her eyes dropped to it before she could stop herself. You've got this thing where you decide what people really are, Raoul said. Not what they say they are. What they actually are under it. Talia stared at him. He kept going. You ask people things when they're off balance. You remember details everybody else forgets. You make them feel safe. Then you write it down. Because if you know enough, nobody gets to act better than you. For the first time, something hard showed through her face. Not panic. Not shame. Offense. As if they are better, she said quietly. Damien didn't move. So you admit it? No, she snapped. I admit this school is full of liars. The words hung there. Raoul felt something in his chest go still. Talia realized, but not fast enough. She looked from one of them to the other and kept talking, maybe because stopping would have felt like losing. They all act so nice until somebody's weak. Then they laugh, or they spread it, or they stand there and do nothing. At least I know what they are. Damien said, very carefully, what do you know? Talia's mouth tightened. And then, because people usually only hear their own trap when it's already closing, she answered. Enough to stop them pretending. Nobody moved. She looked at Raoul's bag. At last she understood. Not fully at first, just the outline, the shape of it. Then the rest hit. The copied page. Bay 14. The fake secret. The questions. The way Damien had said, admitted, and she had stepped around the words instead of away from them. Raoul took the diary out slowly and held it against his leg. Talia stared at it. Her face didn't collapse. That was the strange part. She just looked tired. You don't get it, she said. Then explain it, Raoul said. Something in his voice must have told her he actually wanted the truth. She looked away toward the cracked windows of the old science rooms. In year 8, she said, I told someone something private because I thought she was my friend. By the end of the week half the year knew. Then people acted sympathetic to my face and took the piss behind my back. After that I started noticing how often people did that. To everyone. Not just me. Raoul said nothing. So I kept track, she said. At first just in my head. Then properly. Because if you know what people are hiding, they stop feeling untouchable. Damien's jaw tightened. So you became worse than them. Talia looked at him almost sadly. No. I just stopped being the one with no protection. Raoul thought of his voicemail entry. Of Freya's panic attacks. Of the pages that could wreck people for years if they got loose. That wasn't protection, he said. That was power. She didn't answer. Which was answer enough. They didn't hand the full diary to students. They didn't expose every secret. Even Damien knew that would be evil, whatever she had done. Instead they took it to Mr. Ahmed, head of year, because he was one of the only adults in school who didn't seem easily fooled by charm or panic. They went together, after 2 nights of arguing whether they should even involve school at all. Mr. Ahmed read enough pages to go quiet. Really quiet. Then he looked up and asked only one thing. Has anyone copied this? Raoul and Damien glanced at each other. A few pages, Raoul admitted. Destroy them, Mr. Ahmed said. Today. He didn't say thank you. He didn't praise them. He just looked more tired than they'd ever seen him. The weeks after that were strange. Talia was off school for several days. Then she came back. No big public fallout. No assembly. No grand exposure. Just a set of silences that told their own story if you knew where to look. Meetings with parents. Rumors. A gradual shift in how people treated her. Not everybody stopped liking her. Some refused to believe anything. Some probably never knew. But the easy trust around her was gone. That was enough to change everything. Raoul thought he'd feel better. He mostly felt flat. Damien felt worse than he admitted. Raoul could tell because he got louder for a bit, then suddenly not loud at all. One afternoon they were walking home and Damien said, "Do you ever think about how many people only survived school because nobody found out one specific thing?" Raoul said yes. Because it was true. The diary could have ruined people who had already been ruined enough. That summer, the two of them stopped talking about it much. Not because it was finished, exactly. More because they had Northwest clean place to put it. On the last day of term they left through the back gates near the car park. Same route as before. Same cracked pavement. Same ugly fence. Bay 14 stood empty. Damien nodded toward it. Wish we'd just left the stupid can. Raoul almost smiled. You missed on purpose. I did not. They were nearly at the road when a voice behind them said, "You handled that better than most adults would." They turned. A man stood near the side gate, maybe 30 or 40, hard to tell. Dark coat despite the warm day. Visitor lanyard turned round so the card couldn't be read. His face was ordinary enough that Raoul thought if he looked away he might not remember it properly. Damien frowned. Who are you? The man ignored the question. Most people would have used the diary, he said. You didn't. Raoul felt his shoulders tighten. How do you know about it? The man gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Because schools are full of people collecting information, he said. Most just don't write it down. Something about the way he said it made Raoul feel cold. Damien took half a step forward. Did you know her? The man looked at him for a second, as if deciding whether he was worth answering. Then he said, "You both did well. Be careful what you do next. Solving something like that changes how you see people. Sometimes it doesn't change back." A minibus turned into the lane, tires crunching over gravel. For a second both boys looked toward it. When they looked back, the men had gone. No dramatic vanishing. Just gone far too quickly to make sense. Damien stared down the pavement. Right. Raoul didn't answer. He was looking at Bay 14 again. At the place where a stupid choice had dragged them into months of other people's private damage. At the school behind it, where windows reflected the evening light and everything looked normal from a distance. At the thought that there were probably more people than anyone realized walking around with notebooks in their heads, quietly deciding what others really were. After a while Damien said, "Do you think he worked here?" Raoul kept looking at the empty bay. "I think," he said slowly, "some people get very interested when kids start noticing things adults missed." Damien was quiet for that. Then he said, "That's not comforting." "No." They started walking again, slower this time. Raoul still thought about the diary now and then long after. Not every day. Not even every week. But enough. Mostly he thought about how ordinary it had all looked from the outside. A popular girl. A normal school. Secrets passed around in careful voices. A black diary in a freezer bag under a car. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to mess people up if it got in the wrong hands. And maybe that was the part that stayed with him most. Not that they found the person who wrote it. That part made sense in the end.